Welcome, Barry. It was an action-packed week and an action-packed night. There is so much to unravel. What a card in Riyadh from start to finish. Beterbiev, I had him the winner, by the way. Wide on the night. One round for me, I gave to Bivol in the end. I had it 7-5 to Beterbiev. Some people, maybe yourself, but certainly Eddie Hearn and Frank Warren not agreeing. Where do you stand, first of all? Let's unwrap the fight itself.
Yeah, it was. It wasn't a war. It wasn't like a fight that's one of the greatest fights ever, but it was a really intriguing fight, and all that is really, honestly, based on the Beterbiev, because every time he fights, you're always waiting for something. Ooh, when he catches you, every time he called Bivol, you sort of paused, waiting for the effect of the shot. But Bivol took it really well. I had Bivol by 2 points, so I did the same as you, but the other way, with Bivol rather than Beterbiev, 7 rounds to 5. But it was close. I didn't argue about who won the fight because it was that sort of fight. There was about 4, possibly 5 rounds where you could have gone the other way. So even that 16-12, which sounds a bit too wide for anybody, certainly for Beterbiev, I would think. But if you give those couple of those swing rounds to Beterbiev, or then you can get that score. Right? So you in fights like this, it's hard to argue with who won the fight. I think but the most important thing was that we had a winner. That was important. We have a number. We have a King Artur, of course, which is aptly named. We have a winner, and we have a pound for pound, great fighter. We have a number one in the division, and also because it was such an intriguing fight and a good fight to watch and close fight, we get a rematch, and so we got to be happy with that. A rematch with no controversy. I know Eddie Hearn and then Frank, of course, now because they're best friends. Jumped on he was robbed, so but he wasn't robbed. I mean, I got to be careful because I work for that side of the street. But it's just the truth is nobody was robbed. It was a close fight. It went to the way of the guy who was the more aggressive. That was all. Interestingly though, you might not be, but the only one who was ringside, who I or my colleagues or people around me spoke to, who had Beterbiev winning, was you. I didn't speak to Teddy Atlas, so you and Teddy. But a lot of people, most people ringside had Bivol.
I was on a gantry.
Watching mainly from a TV screen.
TV screen. Yeah.
Okay, I was going to say because a lot of people at home, TNT fans, it was Sky obviously in the zone. We were ringside, but TNT were commentating from a studio back in the UK, and they thought Beterbiev won, and as did a lot of people who watched it on telly. So again, it's that you don't always see the same fight because you don't get the full picture of. I'm not saying our score is right and theirs is wrong, but you see it from a different perspective because you don't see the feet or the movement or the ring generalship. But most importantly, you don't hear the effect of the shots, which could argue then you should give it to Beterbiev even more because every time you hit him, it sounded like a gun going off. But some of Bivol's shots had carried weight, more weight than what you'd think, and you could hear it ringside, and you could feel it, you could see the effect. So, yeah, I just thought he was the busier, but it wasn't a robbery. It was a close fight that went the way to one guy. That's all it was. And so, please, everyone, stop about the robberies and the misjustice. You would feel hard done by if you were the boxer and you didn't get it, but not enough to scream and shout about it. I didn't get the rub of the green. I need to adapt for the
Let me come back
rematch.
at you with a few things there. That's a very interesting take on it all, and I don't disagree with any of that. The judges agreed. I went back over the cards. The judges agreed, I think, Barry, on 10 of the 12 rounds. All 3 judges agreed, right? And I haven't heard anyone say this yet, but they did agree on 10 of the rounds, all 3 of them. They agreed 1-2 Bivol, round 3 Beterbiev, round 5 and 6 Beterbiev, Bivol 8 and 9, and Beterbiev 10, 11 and 12. Now, they agreed on what I would call 2 swing rounds there. And that's why we got 116, 112, 115, 113, and 114, 114. Because the 3 judges went 1, 1, and then agreed on the other 10. So that's why we had that split. It was that indicates how close the fight was. 114 to 116-12, believe it or not, with two razor tight rounds, either one way or the other, is the other score. It wouldn't have surprised me if someone had scored it 116, 112 to Bivol either, with two swing rounds.
Do you know what, Gareth? Like, even on our broadcast, sorry, to make it more understandable, I'm pretty sure Andy Lee he didn't score it really round by round like I did, but he thought Beterbiev won. Just me and Darren Barker thought that Bivol won, and Chris Mannix, who was actually doing the scorecard for the broadcast on his own, he had it a draw. And I think Liam Smith, I don't want to put words in his mouth, I think he thought Bivol was winning, but those last two rounds just edged it towards Beterbiev, but he was like edged it or a draw. So, on the night, no one was screaming Bivol's won this, he's walked it. It was nothing like that. So, and like I said, even though I had Bivol winning, I didn't argue with the result. You couldn't. It was that sort of fight.
I think it's that kind of Sugar Ray Leonard's Marvin Hagler type fight where you like the styles or not as well. Like you just said, if you like I liked the aggressive. From where I was seeing, I was Spencer Oliver. We were together in a gantry. The boys in the studio back at home, Adam Catterall, Adam Smith, and Henry and Johnny Fisher were all seeing it for Bivol. Even though Spencer and I were watching it on a giant screen on a gantry, 50 meters from the ring, we were going with Beterbiev the whole time. Me slightly more, one round more than Spencer I had for Beterbiev. Out of all of this, what I think comes is that and we perhaps should have anticipated this before, because the debate was so strong going into the contest. People either favoured Beterbiev stoppage late or Bivol on points, was the broad spectrum from and we kind of got that in a way. We got the aggression of Beterbiev and him coming strong at the end, and we got the brilliant boxing of Bivol and movement and 1-2. And I thought Bivol boxed better than and withstood the power and freakish power of Beterbiev more than I anticipated he would. And I thought Beterbiev's engine and tenacity were even greater in the face of... He took more punches than he's ever taken before as well from Bivol. So I think ultimately what we got was we got who they are. We actually got who they are. But it may take 36 rounds between these two, or at least 24, to decide the championship of each other. It's like Ali and Frazier. It's like some of the great trilogies. It's like Golovkin and Canelo. It's that level.
I thought Bivol showed great composure throughout. And Beterbiev, as you said, showed a better engine because he's Beterbiev. Bivol boxes round by round. He wants to win every round. Just all he thinks about is, don't worry about round 2, win round 1, win round 2, win round 3. Just win every round like that, and don't worry about building towards anything. That's why he hasn't got as many stoppages as he could have. He could have more stoppages if he thought about breaking people down and working like that. He doesn't. He's a proper computer brain. But Beterbiev boxes in chapters, I think. He has a good look at you in the first round, always. Just see how you cope with the pressure of the feet. Then he tries to insert a bit of pressure physically with the gloves. Then he does more pressure with the feet than the hands in those 3 to 5 rounds. Just if he can't get you out to there, if he knows you're stubborn or clever or a mover, again, but he's tiring you out, making you panic, and is hitting you with single shots. And then the middle to the second half of the fight, he gets more active again. So I think a lot of people have, as well, saying, going back to it wasn't the right scorecard, it wasn't the right winner. It was the corner in the last 2 rounds.
No, but it was a close fight though, wasn't it? So they would always have told him that, I think.
Yes, and also when you've got a fighter who can punch with his power, you're gonna tell him that, aren't you? Regardless, unless he's walking it, even if because you're gonna say, listen, because he can do it. You're not gonna ask me that. You're not gonna say that to me in round 10. You're gonna go, you gotta win these rounds big, these next 2 rounds big. You're gonna say that, but for him, you're gonna say that. So, and also, you in a close fight, you tell your fighter you need to win these rounds, even if you think they're ahead. So same with Beterbiev, he needed to win those rounds. He couldn't win those last couple of rounds, but to make sure, to cement it, he wanted to win those rounds. He couldn't do it. And I thought he did enough to that point. But, it was a worry that, Beterbiev, he constantly moved, he never ran until maybe the last round when he had to run a little bit to survive. And the footwork was fantastic. I thought I was really impressed with it. And I was really impressed with even though Beterbiev, for the first time in his career, hit a guy and it had no effect. It did have an effect, but the effect wasn't shown. And he's never been up
but
against
Bivol's never been bullied like that before. And I'm using that word because that's what I witnessed for the last. I think I gave Bivol. I said I gave Bivol the 7th. I think I might have given him the 9th, but I thought he was bullied the last 3 rounds.
And certainly the last 2, most definitely. Yeah, but again, even in that bullying moment,
he could have gone for 20 being bullied. But what I mean is, the shapes, the body shapes in there. Some people might have said, "Oh, look, Bivol's using his feet to get away." I thought Beterbiev was going after him and cutting off the ring from 8 onwards.
No, yeah. Beterbiev, I'm saying it again, the build-up, he makes a 20-foot one ring and he condenses it into a 3-foot triangle. That's what he does to everybody. And on Saturday, he had trouble doing that, but he showed, we talked about Bivol being calm. He stayed calm, stayed composed, and he just kept trying to calm him down. In the last 2 rounds, it looked like he was getting dividends for that work. He just couldn't get the final finish. But he didn't stop trying hit. He didn't stop trying to hit. He didn't stop trying to knock him out. And and again, it was a brilliant fight, a close fight. And that's what you want. And that's what
exactly. And that's where we have to end this section. But just overarchingly, what an extraordinary fistic chess match at elite level that doesn't feel resolved. It doesn't feel resolved stylistically. It doesn't feel resolved optically. It doesn't feel resolved with the judges. They've agreed a rematch. We saw them with His Excellency Turki Al-Sheikh. We saw the swollen hand of Bivol because and Frank's Noble Art, the great Instagram kind of platform of old Frank who teaches people in Scotland, who's in his 80s. He was making the point yesterday that Bivol's hands were too close to his face throughout the fight, that he took so much. I know it's just a theory, that he took so much punishment on his hands blocking that his face was really damaged because his gloves have been smacked into his face so many times that he might alter that. He might be more peekaboo when he comes out. I think they're both capable of altering so much. I think the second fight will be the same again. I think they'll be very, very similar, but with tiny adjustments that both men make. And I believe we'll be back there within 6 months doing it again, Barry.
Oh, I'm glad. Like you said, it seems like it's unresolved, but in a good way, not in a bad, this and that. It was a great fight. It's a really intriguing
every second of every minute of every round. But did you not feel finally every time Beterbiev, and you kind of touched on this in your first preamble today, when Beterbiev went, even though Bivol had some brilliant successes, 4-punch combinations, when Beterbiev came to life, you thought, ooh, this could be the end here.
Every time, but that's the way he fights. It's the first time I've been live for a Beterbiev fight, not Bivol.
It's freakish.
That power.
A little thing that happened on the way out from the arena. A guy called Pavel, who was in the corner. He lives in Spain. He's a cornerman. He works for Big Fish Productions. He said, I was in the corner for the Gvozdyk fight against Beterbiev. And he said, I was in the corner at one point, and he's Russian, but he lives in Spain. And he said, Gvozdyk came out and he said, I feel like I'm being hit by a man holding bricks. He actually said that in the corner on the night of the fight, towards the end of the fight.
He hit so hard.
Yeah, exactly.
You're watching and commentating, and you hold your breath.
Yeah.
I mean, I was tired watching him. So,
you're listening to Fight Night Extra here on talkSPORT. Myself and Barry Jones, a former world champion, Still to come, we'll discuss the likelihood of Chris Eubank Jr. and Conor Benn after the pair met in the ring on Saturday night. We'll look ahead to this weekend's action too, with Adam Azim against O'Hara Davies live on talkSPORT. Next up, though, we'll discuss a statement win for Fabio Wardley and a concerning performance from Ben Whittaker. You're listening to Fight Night Extra on talkSPORT 2 with me, Gareth Davies, and him, Barry Jones. Well, undercard action now. It was an extraordinary night of varying degrees of drama and brilliance on the undercard. Fabio Wardley, very destructive round against Frazer Clarke. There was very concerning moments for Frazer Clarke when his face was disfigured in just one round of power punches. He hit Frazer Clarke with a shot to the temple. It looked like then the assault was extraordinary as he spun Frazer Clarke around and finished him in the corner. Very dramatic moments. I saw Frazer Clarke at the airport, by the way, on the flight with us out of Riyadh. And he'd had surgery. He'd said that he'd been looked after extraordinarily well by the Saudi Arabians. A very dramatic night on both sides of the spectrum, Barry Jones.
Yeah, it was. Everyone's saying this is round 13 of the 12-round war they had a few months earlier, and that was a great fight, the first fight. And we thought it was going to be the same sort of a war of attrition. That's the truth of it. And we thought Frazer might adapt a little because he is the better boxer with a better boxing brain, with his bronze medal in the Olympics. But Frazer has an innate ability to drag you into Fabio has an ability to drag you into his war, and he does it early. But Frazer started, even though the fight didn't last very long, Frazer started really fresh.
Yeah.
He looked like, he's coming out the gate, really technically very good. But then got caught with a shot, and he looked like he was going to unravel. And then Fabio went for the finish, and then got a little bit too close. And then Frazer landed a little right hand and a nice little uppercut. Frazer, and I thought he backed up Fabio onto the ropes. But then when he went to throw another shot, he span himself, so his body was facing the ropes, his back was facing Fabio, and then as he turned, Fabio had a free shot, and hit him with a lovely left hook, wobbled him back, and then Fabio, just as he always does, fully commits to every shot, threw a big right hand over the top, wobbled Frazer, but the second one was a horrible shot, and that's the one that did the dent, of course, in the side of the head of Frazer, dropped him. He was done. Originally, when I saw him on his knee, Frazer, I thought he knew where he was. He just couldn't get his legs to work, but he didn't know where he was. He was done. When you really look at it back, when you look back at the replay, you can see it, and then I noticed the dent in the head, and his eyes were all over the place, and he was finished. And that's the big problem. That's why they get the big money, these heavyweights, because anyone get knocked out in the first round, but with those, it's a more likely occurrence. If you get caught with one big shot and you unravel, and you have a finisher with the tenacity of Fabio Wardley, then you're done. Fabio Wardley, for me, and I say it all the time, is the most instinctive fighter Britain has seen since Nigel Benn. He's not as good as Nigel Benn. I'm not going to say that, but his instincts when he's hurt are like Nigel Benn's. His instincts when he has you hurt are like Nigel Benn's, and the mistakes and sometimes how he fights his way out of trouble are just like Nigel Benn.
Yeah.
Like he swings, he commits to every punch he throws. He doesn't worry about tiring in for the next round. He just thinks this. He don't try and win the round. He tries to knock you out in the round, just like Nigel Benn did. This is the round, you're done, and he goes all out. And when you catch him in the shot and he looks hurt, is when he's at his most dangerous. His instinct to fire back under pressure is ultimately what's going to get him knocked out somewhere down the line. I hope it's for not a long time to the end of his career, but it's going to get him caught out, that is. But before that happens, you're going to get these magic moments for him, like Saturday night when he knocks out the guy who gave him hell for 12 rounds just a few months ago, and now he finished it in one round. So they've had for Fabio, he's had one of the best fights of the year and one of the best finishes of the year. So he's flying high. This is a guy who never had no amateur experience, was on the white-collar circuit, who turned pro, and we all thought, he looks athletic, he looks the part, he talks well, but ultimately, he's going to come against someone who knows how to box, and he's going to get schooled. And we thought Nathan Gorman was going to be maybe that, a little bit. And he just keeps proving people wrong. He makes mistakes, But again, he has that Nigel Benn-esque ability just to fight through those mistakes, and his mistakes lull you into a false sense of security, and he gets you out of there. He doesn't believe anyone can withstand his power, but now he's got to step up the levels.
Well, that's a very good point for me to jump in, because I do think he goes into the top 10 with this, Barry. He just squeezes into the top 10. And I'd say if you go down the list now of, say, Alexander Usyk at 1, Fury at 2, Dubois at 3, Parker 4, Zhang 5, Bacoli 6, Joshua 7, Kabayel 8, Hrgovic 9. You can drop Wardley in there at 10 if you want to. I know there's Frank Sanchez and Makhmudov and others, but I wouldn't throw him at the top 4 right now. But Parker's looking for a fight. Maybe it's too early for him, but there's some great matchups for him. He might win 4 and lose 4 in the top 10, but he's going to draw people into a war. And I just think he's put himself on the map. I do think he belongs in that top 10.
Ooh, No, but yeah, he will be in the top 10. But he will. That's what will happen. But I don't think he's ready for that. Still, I don't. And as good as he is, I want
to fight. Then so. Where do you put him now? Then.
Well, I think he should. He's not. This is not going to happen. But the sensible bet is defend your title, the British title, against Solomon Daker, someone like that. I don't know, just another one at that level. Just to cement yourself, because he still does make lots of mistakes, and he's still a learning and evolving fighter. So he goes in with Joseph Parker. I know he has the power and the tenacity, but I can't see how he doesn't come out of that. Like in the losing corner. I mean, he has the power, but then these guys know what to tuck up. They know how to make you pay for your mistakes. Frazer was still a novice as a pro, as technically good as he is, still a novice. It was Fabio was a test for him, as well as Frazer being a test for Fabio in the first fight. So that's where that's the realistic of it all, the reality, I think. But what you said is what's going to happen. He's going to be in that match. And you're going to see Kabayel, that's a real step up for him. I mean, and so is Frank Sanchez. But you think the engine of Frank Sanchez, and then you're saying Gerald Miller, Jared Anderson would be a good fight. They're all good fights for him.
Yeah.
And maybe someone like that would be a guy who's a prospect, but still a little bit green, a little bit raw around the edges. Those fighters he can have a go at. Wronged to professionals like Joseph Parker, though a brilliant fight for us, are probably a couple of steps down the line for him. If you're managing a fighter in the old-fashioned way, but we're in a different time now. It's all about,
and that's
what you say is more valid than what I'm saying, I think.
But the thing is, they will have been well rewarded for that fight. We're all delighted, by the way, that Frazer Clarke got on a plane. He was with his wife and got home, because it was a worrying moment for him. But Wardley, Wardley just climbs for me, and I think he will be rewarded. He's in the right stable with Frank Warren right now as well. He's got that incredible stable of 7-8 heavyweights, and arguably all in the top 10. Less impressive, Barry, was the performance from Ben Whittaker. Very odd fight. It looked like Liam Cameron, his opponent, the Sheffield Beterbiev, as he was calling himself all week, really getting stuck in to Whittaker, wasn't having it his own way. We got 6 rounds from them, but it did look like, well, we'll hear from Liam in a minute, but it did look like he was getting fully tested on the night after really pushing Cameron down in the build-up. Let's have a listen to what Liam Cameron had to say on talkSPORT yesterday.
I was putting pressure on him, but I thought, I'm not going to give him everything yet. I'm going to break his heart. I'm going to break this young kid's heart and show him this was pro boxing. And I just thought, I'll chip away. And from second round, he were breathing so heavy. He spat his gum shield out. He were holding me constantly. He was low blowing me. And he basically dragged me onto the rope and you can see him flip his head back. And why I went over, because he got me, do you know what I mean? And he flipped me onto my neck. And he were exhausted, and you could tell I hit him with a body shot before that happened. And I could feel it really take everything out of him. And his shots was so forced. He had to put everything into his shots that last round. He was exhausted. I was quite surprised how easy it were. Ben Whittaker's in a really bad position because he has to fight me again.
Okay, so do you think I'm guessing you've spoken to Frank, or maybe not, maybe it's too early, but do you think that rematch will happen?
100%.
It's got to. It's got
Okay.
to happen. It's got to
Ben
happen.
needs the rematch. I can go all different paths, obviously, with Frank backing me. Yeah, he needs that rematch. There's no way out of it. The fans are going to demand it. His fans and stuff, and the internet. You know what it's like. Can be an horrible place, and it's all his followers have turned and give me the love and support.
So Barry, Liam talked in that interview, the full interview. I watched the whole thing with Goldstein and Cundy back together on Drive. He was saying that Ben Whittaker was putting him down all week. That he had fire from that. He could feel the exhaustion of Ben Whittaker in there, and he's saying he grabbed me and pulled me over, and that was my instinct when I watched it, even though I'd been ringside for that fight, and the ropes were very loose. And I heard the referee complaining about it afterwards, that he was unhappy about how loose the ropes were. But to me, it looked like Ben Whittaker dragged him over the ropes in a very, very weird suplex moment when both of them fell onto the ropes, and Whittaker obviously injured his leg or his ankle at that moment.
He pushed him over the rope. That's what's happened. But before that, when they were more to the centre of the ring, Whittaker was holding him. So he was just trying to push. He was just trying to push Whittaker off, and then Whittaker, and then he just kept pushing him. That's what happened. So he's pushed him over, but you can't blame him because Whittaker was holding on for dear life. Whittaker went out to impress, I think, but he forgot what he was there for. He wasn't there to dig it out and have a war and show people that he could do this and do that. Because he tried to show people he can dog it out, and then showed actually he's nowhere near as effective when he does dog it out against a guy who's physically strong and likes to fight that way.
Exactly for his fight, exactly.
It's ridiculous. So tactically, it was really, really poor from Whittaker. He was there to do the reason he was on the show is because of his showboating antics. That's what they wanted. He got to know who he is and what he is. Like, he lacks a bit of power. You can work on that, but what he's got to realize is if he frustrates him and just starts digging down a bit more in that showboating style, in between that, then he'll stop people late on. So then he will have power. He'll have knockouts. He will be ticking boxes for everyone, for the youngsters, for the show off stuff, for the purists, for the brilliant bits of pockets of skill, and also for the bloodthirsty who like to see the stoppages. He will tick every box for everyone. But not fighting like that because he won't win fights like that. Because he needs to, like a Tyson Fury, he needs to give you opportunities to knock him out because that's where the magic is for him. So you got to believe in himself and trust in who he is and forget about, and see the boxing the way he boxes and being the character he is will make him, it transcends him beyond the sport, which makes you a superstar, which makes you lots of money. But you've got to have the character and the self, the lack of self-doubt, like people like Eubank and Eubank Jr., people like Naz, who genuinely didn't care what people thought about him because they believed in themselves so much, they only heard their inner voice. Ben Whittaker, as you know, seems like a more personable person, if that's a correct terminology. He seems like a nicer guy. I don't want to say a nicer guy. He seems like a nicer guy than those because he's more approachable off the camera, which makes it more difficult to play the persona that he plays in the ring. But he got to double down on it. So he boxed the wrong fight, and he boxed Cameron's fight. And even though you could have had either one, I thought it was just a head, in my opinion. But it was all going Cameron's way at that point. It was going his way. So when they went over the ring in what was a crazy thing, I've seen some mad things. I was up there with it. Then then maybe him not continuing. I'm not saying I can't believe that he would chip out on purpose, but him not continuing probably done him a favour.
Yeah. Well, his foot was bound up in the airport, and it seems that there was a row with a fan in the airport involving a phone. There was all sorts of things, a punched wall. The key is he's got to fight Liam Cameron in a rematch. Liam mentioned that, obviously, on talkSPORT. That's the only place Whittaker's got a rematch and get a win, hasn't he?
Yeah, but he has, most certainly he has. Otherwise, some of the questions were asked will be justified. But for Liam Cameron, just quickly, what a great result for him. He'll think he would have won the fight, but he gets a rematch. He gets paid twice for one fight, really. Let's think about it that way. And it's all about money. And for someone like him, who was going nowhere, all the troubles he's had, what a brilliant time for him.
Yeah, what a story. What a story.
Yeah, it's brilliant. And that's what boxing's about, hey? They're changing people's lives.
Absolutely. You're listening to Fight Night Extra on talkSPORT 2 with me and the former world champion Barry Jones. Next up, we'll talk Eubank Jr. against Conor Benn, with the pair likely to meet in the new year. You're listening to Fight Night Extra on talkSPORT 2 with me, Gareth Davies, and him, former world champion Barry Jones. First up, Barry, let's talk about Eubank's performance. For me, he was caught more than I expected him to. I know he dropped Kamil Zeramata 4 times. He produced what he needed to do, which was an eye-catching performance in some ways and a stoppage, even though it wasn't a dramatic viral moment. But for me, there are signs of aging there. Zeramata hit him a little bit too much for my liking. Just on his performance, first of all, what did you make of it?
See, it wasn't bad, but my commentary was really critical because I thought it was just an opponent set up for him to look good. Zeramata, was physically tough. I know he is, but he was literally, he was in his pajamas and slippers. He was retired pretty much. So it was all set up for Eubank to look good, and he should have looked good. And I thought he was going to look good. The 1-2 that he dropped with the right hand was a great shot, and he thought that's it. He found the key now. It'll be a matter of time. Some of the uppercuts he threw were fantastic, but then that's all he threw. I thought he didn't. And when he got caught, he was hurt. By the way, but it wasn't a real fast straight left, straight right. The guy did okay. He said I meant to dip down to the body with the jab and come over the top, but it was slow, well timed but slow, and he should have saw that. And I think, and my theory about people who start lacking resistance of power is not their chin, it's their vision. They don't see the shots, so they come too close. And I think that might be the case. So that's happening with Eubank. And if that's the case,
about signs of aging, I think there were signs of aging there.
Yeah, I think so. He's still fast and all that. But by the way, he doesn't throw as many punches as he used to.
No.
He's massively more economical than he once was. And then you're starting to see now that those punches he throws are not as powerful as we once thought. They never were, but he would throw them in combinations and so fast. So he's still a good fighter, but I think there are signs there. So all of a sudden, fighters you thought wouldn't have a chance against him, you can start seeing from that fight where it was a good little fight and a decent performance, but there's more questions than answers. I thought because
absolutely.
I think Conor Benn hits him with the right hand like Zeramata did. There's going to be more follow up to that, and there's more power in that shot, and he might struggle even if Conor Benn is a welterweight. Or is a junior, or is a junior super welter, junior middle, whatever you want to call it. So it makes that fight more intriguing.
Well, let's just set that fight up. Obviously, we saw them coming together twice. We had an interview with Conor Benn for talkSPORT. We touched microphones, me and him, and he said, "What's that?" His piece from the time he slapped the talkSPORT microphone out of my hand. There's things to happen. First of all, obviously they brought Conor Benn out there. He was in front of the media. There was when Chris Eubank Jr. had those 2 little golf balls. Again, we didn't mention it. The weight cut looks tough for him as well, for me, which I think showed something during the fight. When he gets those little golf balls on his cheeks, he's got very bony structure there. You could just tell how hard he's had the weight cut. Conor Benn grabbed him in the hotel and went tete-a-tete with him. He was in the ring afterwards. Turki Al-Sheikh was there. Neymar was there almost as adjudicator, Chris Eubank Jr.'s poker partner. It was certainly incendiary, and it built it up. They went forehead to forehead. They weren't going to get a fight. They weren't going to have a fight in the ring, but it built it all. Clearly, they're going to go before the board now, Conor Benn and his lawyers and Eddie Hearn, and try and get him over the line. It was 2 weeks to the day on Wednesday or Tuesday last week that they were due to fight in London. 2 years, Barry, of wasted time because of these clomiphene tests. I imagine they're going to sit down and retrospectively ban him. That's what will happen. I imagine it will happen in the next 6 months, and I think it will happen in Riyadh because I think that's where the money lies. But whether it's going to be a Riyadh season event in the UK, it probably works better here, but we'll get travelling fans for that. And as you just alluded to, the state of Chris Eubank at this stage in his career makes, optically anyway, and he is a much smaller man, Ben. He's got to come up 2 weight divisions. Makes it a very exciting fight for the first 5 rounds.
It does, because when the fight was first going to happen 2 years ago, I just thought it's a bad look if Eubank loses. I thought he got the size, he's got the experience, he's boxed at a high level, everything, and even the style to cause Ben trouble if they're the same weight. So I thought it was too much of a step up for Ben, but the money was huge and he had to take it, and the storyline's fantastic. Since then, things have taken a crazy turn, and Eubank's had a few fights, more wear and tear. He's been stopped for the first time in his career, showing the vulnerability of his chin, then came back and stopped the guy who stopped him. So that shows the resolve and the courage that he has. But then inactivity again for him, not as much as Ben, but for him. And then he comes back with a win, which he did what he had to do, but no one's screaming that he's better than ever, are they? That's the thing. So the fight's happening. That's what's going to happen. But we shouldn't talk about it. We shouldn't ever talk about Conor Benn until he got a license. That's the truth of it. But we do, because it's a story. But I hope I hope he fights with a British Boxing Board license. If the fight happens in Riyadh without, I got to be careful what I say because I want to work on the fight. That's just the reality, isn't it? We're not able scared to say anything. But you don't want to offend any fighter, but that's just how it is. But I don't like if the fight happens and he hasn't got a British Boxing Board license. It's a bad look for the sport and for him and for everyone involved. And even if we're talking about it, it's a bad look for us as well. So if he gets his license back. And he served his ban of sorts. So if that's what it is, that's what it is. Then let him fight and just let it go. It is what it is. He's not the only one who's been caught, or he still denies it. To be fair to his, and he'll die. I think he'll die on a hill of denying it, Conor Benn. So you've got to give him that much respect. But wherever you look at it, a ban's a ban. You can't be rough on one guy and let other guys slide by. You can't. You just can't do that. We're praising Liam Cameron, but he failed the drug test. Okay, it was for recreational drugs, but it's still a drug. It can still help you. And I don't think he took it for that, but still, we let him go because he had a ban, and a longer ban than he should have been. And and fighters through history, by the way, of Roy Jones, Shane Mosley, all these guys have been banned for certain careers for taking certain. Canelo. No, we all praise him for their careers.
Yeah,
that's the truth.
Yeah, he deserves a second chance, and
I'm not justifying anything about Conor Benn. I don't know Conor that well. I talked to him the other day, but I don't know him. I don't know any fighter. I don't want to know fighters, so I can do my job then freely. But still, if he has a British Boxing Board license, it's all above board. It's fine. If he doesn't, he has to get a license elsewhere. It's still not a great look, but it's still a good fight. It's an intriguing fight, and boxing the way it is now. If someone wants, if influential people want that fight to happen, it's gonna happen. So we just gotta accept it and move on. And listen, the storyline with their dads was big enough, but it's superseded that now with their own little story they have personally now.
Yeah, Ben Eubank 3, I think will draw the casual fans. I think it is a fight we need to see. We need a resolution, but we also need a resolution, as you say, with the Conor Benn story of the last 2 years. Can you pick a winner in that at middleweight?
No, I can't because Conor. The last time we saw Conor Benn, he looked awful. Was Peter Dobson was his last fight?
Very tough man, Peter Dobson, though.
Yeah, but still, moved up in weight. He didn't look great, so it's hard to judge. So, but looking at how vulnerable Eubank is, I would tend to think you might make Conor Benn a bit more of a favourite. But still, I still would say Eubank is the favourite because he's been active. He is the naturally bigger guy. So until we see how Conor Benn reacts moving up in weight, you have to make Eubank the favourite. I'm not as big a favourite as I did 2 years ago when the fight was first announced.
Absolutely, and if it's under the auspices and the umbrella of the Riyadh season, they're going to be paid very well, as were Beterbiev and Bivol on Saturday night, both earning 8-figure sums. That's 10 million plus. I'm hearing. You're listening to Fight Night Extra on talkSPORT 2. Next up, we will talk this weekend's action live on talkSPORT. Adam Azim against Artur Davies. But we'll also look back on the first women's title fight in the Riyadh season, Sky Nicholson against Raven Chapman, and a word on the performance of the brilliant cruiserweight Jaya Pataya against Jack Massey. Welcome back to Fight Night Extra on talkSPORT 2 with me, Gareth Davies, and him, Barry Jones. We'll look at Adam Azim and Artur Davies in a moment and return for Anthony Yarde on that undercard at the Copper Box. First of all, though, Barry, the brilliance of Sky Nicholson. When that fight was first announced, the WBC featherweight title, I just thought Sky Nicholson, with that broad shell that she has and clever southpaw movement, fights at range, catch her opponents on the way in, brilliant mover. I thought she would do what she did against Raven Chapman, but in being around Raven and believing in her tenacity and her mental strength, I thought it would be a much closer fight. In the end, I had it a shutout.
Oh, I thought Raven had a really good start in round one, actually, but that was it. And I gave it a round later on. I can't remember, maybe the 9th. But yeah, so I had it 8-2. But it's near enough a shutout. You know, at last, Sky Nicholson loses a round on my card. But I thought it was going to be a hard fight because I thought the Raven Chapman can punch. Not a puncher, but she can punch him. And I thought we haven't really seen Nicholson under pressure being punched consecutively. And I thought that might happen. And in the first round, it looked like that might be the case because Raven Chapman was moving ahead really well. But then once she had to chase Sky Nicholson, who sits on that back foot brilliantly, and she isn't tall, but she's not tall, but she has long arms. She's on her back legs. She has really good timing and fast feet. She's always light on those balls of her feet. She can always move either direction, and she's a southpaw as well. Gets her foot on the outside, makes it awkward for you. And she boxed brilliantly. That was the toughest test, I thought, and she made it look easy. You know, she's a real confident. She's confident, but not arrogance. That's the truth of it.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, more arrogant than confident, I think.
Does that version of Sky Nicholson beat or challenge? Obviously, Amanda Serrano is facing Katie Taylor in Texas on the undercard of Mike Tyson and Jake Paul. But does that Sky Nicholson have a chance of beating Amanda Serrano?
Yeah, I think Amanda Serrano a few years ago, no. Even that, because she's relentless. She's really hits hard. She's relentless with the pressure. She would force her to walk. She would walk it on. Even though those 2-minute rounds suit Sky Nicholson's style. But with Amanda Serrano moving up in weight again, and at her age, having to move back down, you tend to think the Taylor fight will be another hard, even if she wins or loses, it's another hard slog for both of them. Miles on the clock. It might just be the time, might just be right. But Serrano still goes in a massive favourite, and I still think she's good enough to beat Sky Nicholson. But Sky Nicholson's put herself in the shop window with that performance more than any other because she boxed superb. You talk about fighters who know themselves. We talked about Ben Whittaker earlier about being true to yourself. She is a boxer who knows herself as good as anybody. This is what I do. I don't care what people think about my style being boring or safety first. This is what I do. If you want a good fight, tell the girl in the other corner to make it a good fight. Because I'm here to take over with what I do best. And what she does best is punch and move. And I think it's relatively pleasing when you have the right dance partner. I thought she boxed brilliantly. Absolutely flawless for 8 rounds of that 10-round fight. Yeah,
it was a brilliant spectacle as well. Like you say, it was a great matchup. I thought they carried themselves all week. Huge intrigue around it. But Sky Nicholson just too good. I think Raven Chapman will come back as well, and she will learn from that because she made her look quite agricultural. But I think she does do that to you, Sky Nicholson. It's a very good point because she's not the tallest woman. I always expect her to be 6 foot tall when you meet a Sky Nicholson, but she's not. But she's a very long, tall, big shelled fighter when she's in the ring. Roy Jones Jr. always looked bigger in the ring than he was to me. I mean, got that about her.
Canelo's one, isn't he? Some people have a presence about them. They look bigger than they are. Yeah, but she has a long levers and she can sit on that back foot and still hit you with a jab. And being a southpaw as well, boxing mainly orthodox fighters who lead with their left hand. She makes sure she gets that foot on the outside, so it always gives her the advantage to throw one of her best punches, that left hand right down the trap.
Yeah. It was. There was some brilliance. So there were some real wow moments in that fight from Nicholson as well.
Superb. She boxed really well.
Absolutely. Jaya Pataya, no question the number one cruiserweight in the world. Although, why have I picked against Chris Billum Smith, and been wrong so many times? He's up against Zurdo Ramirez, defending his titles in November in the Riyadh season. Looking to go over to that as well myself, to see that up close and get some time with Oscar De La Hoya for a clapback Monday to Friday. Jaya Pataya, I mean, from the opening bell, again, another southpaw, very explosive southpaw, lands left hands from weird angles that people don't like, even though they look very straight, creates great angles with his feet. Again, a guy who looks big when he's in the ring, walked Jack Massey down, and I thought Joe Gallagher, the Britain's trainer, mercifully threw in the towel halfway through the bout, because I think he was just taking too much punishment. Different levels, these guys.
Yeah, that for me was the best performance from Jaya Patel I've seen. I mean, the Breeders' first fight was a great, stepping up in levels, a great performance, obviously, and a great result with the broken jaw, and he carried on fighting. The next two fights, to be honest, were below his level, again, with Thompson and Zorro. Good fighters, but nowhere near his world level, and he blasted through them. And then we all got a bit carried away with this monster of Jaya Patel because of his demeanour outside the ring. He looks right through. You talk to him and say he wants to eat you alive. Yeah, so he's an intimidating character. But in the ring, he's a boxer. That's what got him to Breeders the first time. And in the second fight with Breeders, his last performance, people criticised it because Breeders is still a brilliant fighter, even though he's old in age and in legs, and he struggled a bit.
He did the last 3 rounds. He struggled a little bit.
He was trying to knock out, but he's trying to walk because he went down a level and walked through fighters. He thought he could walk through Breeders. This time, with his dad back in the camp, he went back to what he does well, boxing. And I thought it was an Usyk-esque performance because like a southpaw, he put pressure on you with the feet. He made Massey panic all the time. He made him work hard without doing any work himself. That's what Usyk used to do. Even when rounds are close, he makes you work. So if you're winning a round, you're having to bust the gut to win it. And Apatai did that without losing any rounds. And he picked the shots well, and he stepped in with that left hand right through the middle of the guard, the right hand over the top with the right southpaw jab, boxed so well. And just like you said, slowly picked him apart. And yeah, listen, Joe Gallagher gets criticised for not pulling fighters out, but he knows his fighters. That's why he keeps the fighters in who he thinks can still pull out the bag. He knew he didn't win a round. He was starting to get hurt, and Massey is as tough as they come. And I think Massey will he's never going to win a world title, I don't think. And I hope I'm wrong, but he might just be a gatekeeper. And that doesn't sound complimentary, but he might earn a load of money doing that. And that's what for him. His life has changed a little bit now because he showed toughness against Apatai. He's a European champion. Beating some really good fighters. So, domestically and European level, he's always going to win some, lose some at that highest level. But at world level, I think he needs a little bit of an X factor. He haven't quite got it, but he's tough and solid all the way around. But Apatai is the number one. That was for me. November now in Riyadh is the semi-final to face him.
Yeah, I agree. And either of those guys, obviously Zurdo's come up from super middleweights, but Ramirez, but Billum Smith for me is the favourite in that fight. He'll guts it out, and I think Billum Smith may be a good test for Jaya Patel, but whether he's going to be,
I think Zurdo's the favourite.
Do you? Well, that's fair enough. We've got to move on, but we've got to move on. We'll talk about that next week because we've only got a few minutes left on the show. And we must look ahead to this weekend's Copper Box event. Adam Azim against Artur Beterbiev. Adam Azim, 11 fights, 8 knockouts, 22-year-old with the flashing fists, reminiscent of Amir Khan at super lightweight. Artur Beterbiev, a very experienced fighter, obviously lost in a shock 1-round defeat in Vegas earlier in the year in January to Ismael Barroso. Who's obviously fought at a very, very high level. Good test this for Adam Azim, and I expect him to come through this, but Artur Beterbiev might cause him a few problems if he's really up for this fight, Barry.
Yeah, Artur Beterbiev got power. He has power, but he keeps it in locker sometimes for too long. And if he does that against Adam Azim walks right through him, I think. But Adam Azim, they know each other well. They've been friends from when Adam Azim was younger, and so he'll be well aware of how powerful and how good and how awkward, because he has the longest arms you ever met in your life. to O'Hara Davies, and he used it to his strengths quite often. But I think Adam Azim can stop him, and I think he will stop him. It won't be the blowout that Barrosa had, I don't think, because it won't be the same nerves or situation that he was in, O'Hara Davies. But I think he'll struggle with the speed and the movement that Adam Azim. If Adam Azim comes in supremely confident, aware of what he's got, but not wary of what can happen, believing in himself, then I think he puts on a great performance and makes O'Hara look very, very old overnight, very, very stationary. And I do think he'll put on a performance. I do think he gets a stoppage, and I don't think it goes past 6 rounds.
Yeah, I agree. I was about to say...
That's a statement, though, Gareth, isn't it, to be fair?
No, that's exactly what I feel as well, that he gets a stoppage. And if he doesn't in 5 or 6, he'll win easily on points. Also on the card, Anthony Yard returns, I believe Dan Aziz is on the card as well. Barry, we are out of time. Thank you so much for your time today, as always. You've been listening to Fight Night Extra on talkSPORT 2. Remember, if you missed any of the show, you can listen to it as a podcast. Find it under the Fight Night banner on talkSPORT. Find it under the Fight Night banner on the talkSPORT app or wherever you get your podcast from. We'll be back with you next week.
On AM, on DAB, via the talkSPORT app and on your smart speaker. talkSPORT.